brother.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Here we are back again. Just want to give a quick shout out to our sister who's always here on time, Sister Queen Diane. Glad to see you here.
Diane.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Brother Metamorphosis, always coming with the good knowledge and the good wisdom, well thought out, deeper than most. And that's how you prepare it. You know, anybody can fry chicken, anybody can bake chicken, anybody can season chicken. But the way you make the chicken in your restaurant is so special, and not just the way it tastes, but the ambiance of the restaurant and how you present everything. You have everybody feeling good and they absorb it good. And that's the mark of a good teacher. Whether you call yourself a teacher or not, you are a teacher, a real teacher. And the real teachers have students that love to come to the class. We're not sitting here fidgeting around on our phone and saying, oh man, is he over yet? No, when the end of the time comes and you say you're signing off, we get a little depressed because it's like, oh man, we got to wait a whole week again.
Well, greetings, brother. Always good to be with you. Like I was telling you earlier, you got to ship some of those mangoes out here because every week I see you look 5 years younger. And I'm like, okay, either we're eating the wrong stuff in America, we know we're eating GMOs for one.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, man, always good to see you, chat with you. Also, keeping me on track as far as business and everything. So I appreciate that about you, brother. And greetings to the family, man.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And like I said, many other cultures, when one of them may be the one who brings about the idea, the people in that culture, and I'm just going to randomly pick Chinese.
Okay.
They all want to see that product, that baby, that creation have the best shot. So they don't want to burden it. They want to protect it. They want to make sure. They want to share and chip in the energy to make that ship, I said baby before, but that ship take lift off. So how are you going to have something from your own people lift off if you're jumping on it, looking for the free hookup, jumping on it, looking, hey man, I can get a couple $100? No, man, I'm supposed to be the one.
Right.
And all of us, whenever we see someone who has a dream that's going to benefit us, not just a monetary thing, but our children on an educational level, on an awareness level, we need to feed into that because there's too many of us who, as Black people, there's some good ones out here, right? But there's a lot who either despise or step back, and I'm not going, let me see if this is good. No, feed into it, wish it the best, promote it, and let it be that for the joy of it. Doesn't have to be, okay, well, I'll hook you up, man. It's been 5 years. I see you getting this money. No, when you get that money, feed it back into the project and other projects or help somebody who has an idea themselves. This is what many of us don't do. And it's not always money, but collective skills, collectively as a community.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
What if we remove this thing called money and there was no money, not even like this digital thing they're pushing now, right? And we all sitting up and you took 50 or 100 people from your circle and outer circle, and I dropped y'all in the woods 1,000 miles away from any civilization. But at the same time, I gave everybody $1 million in cash in their pocket. What good is that $1 million? Somebody has to build the home. Somebody has to cook the food. Somebody has to take care of the children. The money's useless. The value is in each other.
Yes.
You see? So why can't we see it that way now? The talents collectively that we have and to cultivate that. And you having books coming out and working on these things, a children's book that we have to speak about. It's going to feed in, done by you. I want them. I don't have any young children anymore, but if I did, and yes, I do, from other loins.
Yes,
collectively as a community, right? As a people, I want you to be the one to. I want them to absorb what you because see, it's organic. It's a connection. See what's inside of you as far as your energy is concerned. Yeah, you've been through bad situations in America like I have, but you also see the good. You have the love in your heart. You have that. We want that touch on our children, not somebody who comes from a different community, who doesn't like us, who doesn't care if we pass or fail. It's not about
Right.
pass or fail.
Right.
You'll always not even pass. You'll exceed when you have the right breast for the right child. We're sucking from the wrong breast. And I don't mean anything sexual. I'm just
Yeah,
saying
I know what you mean.
the wrong hand and the wrong vibration and the wrong people who look at us and don't want to see us do good anyway. You see what I
That
mean?
is a fact. That's very well said, brother, because we do what I call selective value.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, the things that we select to give it value are the things that are bad for us.
Yeah.
And that in itself is kind of twisted. Um, and I wanna get into the children's book real quick, and the reason why,
Yes. Take your time, brother.
brother Lance. Okay, um, just so everybody will know, this is one of the main or the main signature project of the Academy. I spent the last 5 years on it. I know people say 5 years, but one of the things I was always conscious of is the value and the quality that I was putting into this to pass down to our children.
Exactly.
And one of the other main reasons too is our children are not going to survive in this artificial world, okay? And without some type of balance and homeostasis that actually brings out their natural gifts and talents and natural intelligence, which ironically is a big major part of what we're going to discuss today with eugenics. But I want to talk to the family today, parents out there under the sound of my voice. This is a project that's very, very important for the future of our children. I chose to really focus on ages between 3 and 12, and I'll tell you why. See, now by the time our children reach 13, 14 years old, many times they're fighting with you if you try to go back and correct something that you didn't correct in the beginning. So after, everybody has their own lane. Like you always say, brother, everybody has their own lane. One of the things that they have done to us is for us to try to jump on or be in the lane of other people just to compete against them over attention. That is not how this works. So yeah, I really I guess I can use the word proud. I'm proud of the fact that what was produced is something that we can pass down to our children. And it was based on two of the studies that I really looked at that really kind of directed my thoughts in this. One was, and I talk about this on my website, it's called the fourth grade syndrome. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, up until the fourth grade, okay, Black boys scored on these tests, which we're going to talk about as well today, these standardized tests, in the 90th percentile, as hard as that is to believe. What? Something happens to Black boys between the fourth and the seventh grade. And this study showed that this was like a mind reversal, that they went all the way back. By the time they got to the seventh grade, they went all the way back down to the 20 or 25 percentile. Now, there are several reasons for that. We know most of it is socioeconomic, but there are also other reasons for it as well. So I kept that in my mind, is that what happens to our boys between the ages, between the grades of fourth grade and seventh grade. And I'm sure many of you, like Lance and a lot of other people in the chat room, the family, you guys are very intelligent. you know the answers to this. So this was something I was very passionate about addressing. The other study was, and this one is still hard to look at even today, where you got these 3, 4, 5-year-old kids. They got black dolls and white dolls on the table. So they asked them, which one is the pretty doll? We already know the answer to that. Now, these are our children now. Which one is the smart one? You already know which answer that is. Which one is the ugly doll? This is the one that got me. So we're looking at, and this ties into our topic today, we're looking at a serious spiritual and psychological dilemma that our children are faced with, that a lot of times we want to prepare them through indoctrination through the public school systems. You know, we want to prepare them to fit into these systems that totally reject them. The last thing I'll talk about, Lance, and you know about this, you remember the old Montessori schools in New York?
Yeah.
So they were for preschoolers, and it was focused on, because I used to have to take my two, my daughter and my youngest son, who were born in Jamaica, Queens, to this Montessori school every morning before going, you know, to work in Brooklyn. And one thing I remember is it was focused on bringing out the natural gifts and talents in the child. And that always struck me. And that was something, my oldest son was born in Baltimore. He didn't have the benefit of that. He turned out with his own gift or what have you. But the point I'm trying to make is that when you intervene with children at that age, it has a tremendous impact on their lives.
Yep.
And I look at my daughter and my youngest son today, and the reason why they turned out to be the way they are is because that early intervention. And Linda wasn't having it any other way. She said, you're going to take them to the Montessori school every morning, and that's it. So I
was in the Head Start program myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a good program.
And what was strange, I remember them requesting to take me to do these tests from young, like simple stuff.
Yes.
Like not a test where they ask you questions and stuff, but just these perception things and matching up shapes and certain things and certain sequences and to see how your brain. And it was like easy for me. And they were always like, oh, he's gifted. But then that's a double-edged sword, because when you had them 1948s and those small hat teachers looking over you, they would also give you a little resistance because they had a heads up that you had a clear way of thinking.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to say it in a coded way,
No,
the Finkelsteins and the Goldbergs, they're there in place, as far as I'm concerned, to see who the brightest are and kill their spirit or point them in a different direction.
Exactly.
Because they don't want black brilliance in children from young. And then when they have the PTA meetings and they see that they're supportive, aware, and conscious parents who will tell them in a coded way, in a non-coded way if need be, because they couldn't handle my father nor my mother, who was a college teacher, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when they saw that, they said, oh, okay.
And they had
so there's a lot of things thrown my way on the low through those teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that was by design. And again, when we go into the topic today, we're going to cover a broad range of things that a lot of Americans today are unaware of. So, brother, if you want to start the audio book, I'll go through this real quick.
Okay, now I wasn't prepared. I didn't download anything yet.
Okay.
I thought we were going to do this Wednesday, but I'll go ahead.
No, you're right. We can do it Wednesday.
Yeah.
We can do it Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I want to have a full thing because of the last few days and this work going on here that's about to start. I had to run around a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna have
Yeah,
everything set up.
Wednesday will be better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of education, we have got to take back the part that affects our kids at the root level. Because one thing that happens is when they go to school, and I've been in these schools, okay, and in California, it's totally different than the East Coast, brother. They don't have very many representations of our Black ancestors who achieve great things. Unless you go, say, to Nassau Hall of Fame or places where they have awards of our people. Well, now they're trying to take it out of the Smithsonian, right, and the Library of Congress. So this is why it's very important for us to focus on, the future of education. So let's get to the good part.
Yes.
Brother, another good banner.
Okay,
Yeah, I like that banner because, again, we know a picture's worth 1,000 words, and it jumps out right at you because we know this to be the case. Many of the things that spurned their passion comes from the fact that they had to know what could be done in order that this picture you see today does not become the dominant social cultural prototype.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
They had to do that. But we want to know what you're thinking, as always, brother, when you put the banner together before we go into the presentation.
Well, you can see the study of DNA and the strips of DNA, and you see the chains also. So they wanted to take our strength, our genetic makeup, and reduce it and turn it around into somewhat of a deficiency. Because our genetic makeup is, and I say this in all being humble, is superior. We are not supernatural. Well, let me explain. We are natural, but our natural is super to the recessive one that tries to oppress us. See, 100. If we say we're supernatural, we're rating ourselves against that oppressive genetic makeup that is recessive and dying off. No, this is the way it's supposed to be. We aren't recessive. We're supposed to dominate. So if we look at it through the eyes of the oppressors, oh, it's supernatural. Well, yeah, I'll accept that because I'm supernatural to you, but this is the way it's supposed to be. When you see our strength, our mental, physical, and spiritual awareness, the natural gift of discernment. Look, we got brothers on drugs who are alcoholics who even lost their mind, but they can look at you and still perceive a lot more than these other people who can't figure it out. They need us to lead the way. But yet they hate us for what we have, and they want to, that's why the scissors are there to cut our lineage to our past. You see? They don't want us to know or have that connection or that metabolic momentum, that generational momentum that when we're born, we can come out the womb damn near, hear music and dance to the beat. You come out and figure things out. You just hand one of our children a phone. They don't need the instructions. They just keep pushing the buttons and figure it out and hand it back to you and tell you how to work it. See, these things we overlook because it's natural to us. So this is why I had the black man, which represents the black man and the black woman, being tampered with. And you have the doctors in the back with the clipboard on how we can use eugenics to reduce and set us on a path of existence that's destructive. Because we already tried. I'm not saying you or I, but they're saying we already tried. They're still here. We've destroyed a lot of them. They're pointing in that direction, but there's so many more coming, still here off the assembly line. How do we stop this? Because if they did to themselves or someone did to themselves what they've done to us, they really wouldn't be here right now. They've done every dirty trick in the book with food, with spirituality, with our minds, with chemicals, with drugs, with everything in the food. Man, let me tell you something. To them, that's why they would say we are supernatural, but they'll only whisper that. They don't want us to really hear that from them. That's why they try so hard. They know who we are, but we don't know who we are. That's the problem. We don't know who we are.
That is a fact.
You see?
Wow. I'm ready to put my clipboard down now. That was a pass around the plate or something, because, boy, you're talking about setting the table. That was definitely right.
No, well, I'm here in the studio a lot. This is my think tank, and I'm here.
Yeah, yeah.
And days can go by so fast on days where I say I'm going to stay home and do this or do that.
Yeah.
And there's no clocks in here. I look outside, I can see whether it's light or dark, but I'm gone mentally. And when it's time to come out, you know, sometimes I'm falling asleep. I say, let me write an article before I go to sleep. Throw that out there. Let me set up a show. Let me do so I can have my mind to myself without the interruption of the American enemy system coming at my mind.
Right, right.
I'm totally isolated.
You're in a cocoon.
Yeah. So when they took all those 6,000 videos down, the old channel, the old work, have it. Because I'm coming with more and more protected, even better. Every moment at a time. I'll take a minute and make it feel like an hour, because that's how deep I'll go in my thought. Tranced out, but not tranced in some weird way. You know, no, but just like when you go to the beach with somebody and they go way out in the water and you barely see their head. You know,
oh yeah.
But I'm here. The astronaut with the lifeline, and he's out in space and way away from the ship. Maybe you don't see me but that lifeline is there. I'm coming back. I'm here. I'm submerged in subconscious, stirring up things in the back of my mind, things that hit me. When I play music from back in the day, boom, people come to me, thoughts, conversations.
Wow. Yes.
I'll start out one way, end up here, and gone. Look around, it's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
All night sometime.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And I've been sleeping. I've been sleeping deep, coma-like sleeping. I'm not gonna lie. I woke up at 8:30 this morning, and I didn't get out to bed till 12:15.
That's a good thing.
I was just thinking.
Yeah.
The clock was.
Some of your best revelations come when you're laying in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I roll out on the porch and do some more. You know, let the sun hit me. But this is not about me, brother. You have a message to share.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Absolutely. But you know, your wisdom and your concepts and your images, we need to know, because it helps to you know, open our pineal glands to see exactly what we need to be focused on, because the words that you speak, sometimes, not sometimes, but people always look at them like, oh, okay, well, this is a black-white thing. No, this is a truth thing. This is what actually our experience is in this world. This is what people who oppose us, this is the language that they give to us. And just to kind of get into the subject today, brother, and piggyback on what you were saying.
Yes.
Is that eugenics, the title Eugenics, the Ideological Falsification of Natural Selection. And man, as I begin to research this more and more this week, even I didn't realize how deep this was in our society. It would literally take probably 2 or 3 shows to go through all of it, but I'm going to touch on some of the very important issues that have surfaced today, because again, we're taught that the past is some type of linear energy. It's not. It's circular, and it's always around us and with us. And when someone can evoke that energy from that time period, then it can take on that same spirit. And that's what we're experiencing now, because there is a language of eugenics.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and I listened to some of the talking points with different political parties and different people. And wow, it's mind blowing. It really, really is. But let's talk about, first of all, let's define what eugenics is. So eugenics is the study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as desirable. Now, why is that important? That's important because as we begin to go down this rabbit hole, we'll see the very important figures in our society that were amongst the elite, from our most prestigious institutions like Harvard, Columbia University. And so what happens is this particular energy that existed during that time, they're even using the same language. So the father, we'll just call him the father of modern genetics. We know that he actually is the biggest proponent of eugenics in America. He is the one that established even institutions to study the different effects that selective breeding, okay, where now you're playing God, where they discovered, well, the whole reason why they discovered the power of genes and how this information is passed down through generation, we know is from Gregor Mendel's work on peas. So they knew that, so at the root of nature is mathematics, okay? So they changed the name and called it the Mendelian ratio, okay, which we saw after the initial generation of offspring of the dominant and recessive gene is going to be all dominant. But that next generation produced a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 dominant, 1 recessive. So they learned that if they could take what they call, so they began to look at society based on the upper middle and the elitist class in America, okay? And we're going to go into this a little more because eugenics was actually designed. Okay, let's talk about the origin and the history of it before we get to natural selection. Okay, but the origin or the founder of eugenics is Sir Francis Galton. And he was a British doctor that actually, his cousin was Charles Darwin. And of course, we know Charles Darwin wrote the book, The Origin of Species. But it was all based on animals. So when Charles Davenport, who was a Harvard grad and a biologist, when he went to visit and see Sir Francis Galton, he told him that he eventually wanted to take what they have studied in nature, in plants and animals, and then do the same thing with humans. Okay, so he studied some of the theories and ideologies that Sir Francis Galton had, and he began to breed these different animals just to see what type of, hereditary gene would come as a result of this. Okay, so this was developed largely by Sir Francis Galton as a method of improving the human race. Okay, this is the reason why you have this language of eugenics, why people are called low IQ, and we're going to talk about that as well. Because there are laws that in America, the early 20th century, that people could be detained based on whether or not they were labeled as having a low IQ. We'll look at the different scales that they had, like idiot, imbecile, and then moron. So this was, so their initial purpose was to improve the human race, or the Nordic race, this race of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. Eugenics was increasingly discredited, as you know, as time went on, as unscientifically and racially biased during the 20th century, especially after the adoption of its doctrines by the Nazis in order to justify their treatment of Jews, disabled people, and other minority groups. Also, Margaret Sanger, who we know is an avowed racist, she actually, and this is a tough part of this history we have to look at. W.E.B. Du Bois believed in the talented 10th, okay? And this was a sort of a spinoff from this blueprint of eugenics, whereas you're gonna take the most talented of, you know, your culture and only have them to marry. Again, we hear the eugenics language of no more interracial marriage. All of these things tie back to this, okay, to this period, American history, where eugenics, actually the entire society, all of our wealthy people in society, such as Andrew Carnegie, who was the first financier of Dr. Charles Davenport's Institute, where actually it became in, I think it was Long Island, Lance, or somewhere in New York, Oyster's Point, maybe, where,
wow.
yeah, it was called the Eugenics Record Office. This is where, in 1910, this is where they began to first accumulate information. This was the first data mining, okay, on human beings. And we're going to cover that as well. It goes deep. But their whole philosophy was, if we could splice genes, okay, based on the traits of people we perceive to be good, such as the white, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon traits or blood, then we can eliminate, and then they begin to infuse code words that they use today, like criminals or DEI, or people who are deficient in any way. But we know that it was based on the one drop rule, because up until the time, there were Northern and there were Germans, Western Europe and Northern Europe were sending people here through Ellis Island. I think it was something like 1 million a year, okay, or 75,000 a month. But then you had the more darker hue of people from Eastern Europe, Russia, and other places like that, the Slavic nations, that when they begin to come, then white people looked at them as a threat, okay, because at this time they became aware of the knowledge of melanin, okay. So they were like, okay, we can't maintain a purebred race of Nordic people or blonde-haired, blue-eyed people if there is one drop of blood from the undesirables. Okay, this was their train of thought. So the good Protestant white Christians, regardless of whatever evil they did, they saw themselves at the top of the human food chain, and that this is where this God complex developed. Because now, if natural selection, you are born as who you are naturally, then Sir Francis Galton said, well, natural selection ain't working out too good, so now we're going to have to intervene. So this is where we're at this time in American history. Margaret Sanger, as I was saying, she was, in my mind, the first witch. Okay, I'm just going to keep it real. Okay. She had no intentions. Her thing was, she was, okie doking black preachers, black intellectuals, that we could alleviate the problem of poverty in the black community if we just aborted black babies. Okay. And so somehow, but when you listen to this woman talk, right away, she didn't care anything about trying to help black folks. She just wanted to kill black babies because they did not want them, the undesirables, okay, to be. So their thing was, especially Charles Davenport, that much of the traits and that we see, or the behavior that we see in our society that are negative, like criminality, things like that, low IQ, people being morons. Ironically, in World War I, when they had to draft a whole lot of people, this is where this first idea of testing people came from. So you got 1 million soldiers, you got to kind of separate them based on, their cognitive abilities, right? So they had the alpha and the beta tests. The alpha test was to determine which American draftees were literate or literate in English. The beta test was to determine the ones who were either slow with English or illiterate. So come to find out, over 50% of the people that they drafted were considered morons. And they even teased there was some aspect of our society, the rich, like they do with poor whites today, the poor whites just don't recognize it, but they laugh at them. And they don't want them as a part of this eugenic society that they built. But Margaret Sanger established the first abortion clinic in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York. You're very familiar with that area, Lance. I was a caseworker for the city of New York, and
yes,
the men's shelter in Brownsville, Brooklyn. And that they produced something that has never been done in the sports world, 2 heavyweight champions, right?
That's right.
And so in Brownsville, Brooklyn, she started Planned Parenthood, okay? And she was praised and implemented by Hitler and the Nazis. She was inducted as an honorary member into the KKK. Okay, and she used racist rhetoric to justify the killing of black babies. She was a member of the Eugenics Society, which their motto and mission was improving the genetic composition of humans through controlled reproduction of different races and classes. And American Eugenics Society in 1972, they killed over 60 million babies were aborted, and 1/3 of them were black babies. Now we're going to come back to this in a second, but we want to talk about what natural selection is, or in other words, the creative spirit, who you are, what you're born to be, and why no human being has the right to decide who lives or who dies based on their, superiority complex. But natural selection is the process whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. The theory of its action was first fully expounded on by Charles Darwin, and it is now believed to be the main process that brings about evolution. So you see, and so during this time, the rich white ruling class, just like we see today, they wanted to eliminate every single individual in society that they deem as undesirable. Whether they had a mental, physical, or a mental, or a spiritual, because believe it or not, they said that there were some traits that were passed down where they were morally inept. So in other words, they could not experience the true nature of this white nationalist God that they, worshipped. So they developed this terminology called feeble-minded. Okay, and we're going to go into that a little bit as we look at, dive a little deeper into the father of modern American eugenics, okay, Dr. Charles Benedict Davenport. And he was the father of the American eugenics movement, and he was the major inspiration to the Nazis. And so eugenics basically is science based on scientific racism and social injustice. And they believe that, so Sir Francis Galton said that in order to give the more suitable races of blood a better chance of prevailing over the less suitable than they otherwise would have had. Even one of our presidents, Theodore Roosevelt, was also a huge proponent of eugenics and the Nordic race, blonde hair, blue eye philosophy. And he made the statement that, yes, why should society support people who are naturally inferior? That's why you see today they can clean up a homeless camp with no feeling about what they're doing, because they look at them as undesirable. I believe one of the statements by a politician said that they only wanted 100 million people in America, and all of them would be these white Nordic people, right? This race that they, conjured up. So, and all throughout American society, when we go into the testing aspect with psychologist Goddard, we're going to see how this was actually used and formulated first. So in the mental health field, they, unlike all the other fields, they began to start testing on white people. Okay, and I'm talking about clinical psychology. We know that they tested on our people in slavery, but I'm talking about when they start to begin to use, and actually the term moron was a diagnostic term, okay, and a diagnostic tool. This was before the DSM. So in other words, they theorize that if you put these so-called feeble-minded individuals and they mate, then every generation after them is going to produce some type of feeble-minded, morally inept criminal. So you see, this is how they classify, when they use these words, even when they talk about Hispanic people, okay, it's the same thing. It's this coded language that's rooted in eugenics that, we have a clear history of. So this white Christian nationalist Protestant elitist class of whites were determined, when they developed this God complex, who was suitable for society and who wasn't. And you'd be amazed at in all aspects of our existence here in America, this particular ideology, okay, which usurped natural selection, was ingrained in our society. And this is what's happening today. They're using this eugenics playbook. Okay. Let's look at, okay, so we talk about the origin of eugenics with Sir Francis Galton, but the other thing too, I just wanted to expound on a little bit before we move forward, is that Charles Darwin, the work of Charles Darwin, his cousin, and that the origin of species had a profound impact on Sir Francis Galton, the father of eugenics, this British doctor. And it's, they had this God complex. Let's just call it for what it is, okay? So he basically said that he would take this evolutionary way that they looked at the world, and he would basically form this term, eugenics, that it's the science of improving the human stock. And this clearly shows that they were opposed to the will of the creatrix spirit. So when they tell this story that they have made up about this being, okay, that they call Satan or Lucifer, that he rebelled against God, this is what they're talking about. And this is them. This is not something that happened in no war in heaven. This is what they did here. Okay, and they're warring against us, who are the representation of the creator creatrix spirit. And this is why people keep asking the question, why do they hate Black people so much? This is your answer. You've got to wrap your head around the fact that the other thing too is, this has already taken place in the etheric world, or in what you call the spiritual world. This has already taken place. They know this. We just don't want to accept it. They know this already. And they studied a wide variety of animals. Davenport started splicing genes with with roosters, cats, rats. They, just like today, when they are looking for the so-called God particle, which is in you, and they're doing all this insane stuff at CERN, smashing particles at high rates of speed. Again, they're not naturally connected to these forces like you are. So the only way they're going to find this out is to cut you open, like they did our women with medical studies, to upload stuff in your brain, to have neural links, and whatever they can do to have some type of artificial advantage. And that's why, I was saying that our Nature's Children book is so important to our children, because this is a stronghold we're going to have to break. Now, I'm not saying that they should not, because they're going to perfect anything that's set before them. Coding, artificial. Our children, like Lance was explaining earlier, are kinesthetic learners. They don't need no instructions. Okay, they can look at something, break it down. I'll never forget my first experience with this. Rest in power. My nephew, when he visited from New York, from the Bronx, and he came to Savannah, you know, we every morning we'd get up and watch something on TV before going to school. So we get up the next morning, getting ready for school. We go in there, and all of the guts of the TV is on the floor. And we're like, whoa, what's going on here? So my nephew was like about maybe, how old was he at that time? Maybe 10? And we're looking at, oh, and when my mom, Mother Frazier, came there, she almost had a fit. Because at that time, you know, they would watch these stories as the world turned, you know, when they wasn't in church or whatever. General Hospital and all these stories that used to come on in the daytime. And she was like, oh, no, where's little Stephen at? Get him in here right now. And he had this look on his face, and he came in. She said, I hope you know how to put this back together. And he just started smiling and was like shaking his head. And we all standing there, and I'm saying, yeah, you better put it, because I want to see the game tonight. But when we come home from school, you better have. And he did. He put it all back together. No instructions, no nothing. And like you told me before, Lance, with this story that, you know, they started tracking you because they found out you didn't need to follow the instructions to get to the answer. And see, that's why the academies work.
Yes.
And I always believed, when I was teaching special ed, that I believed in the student-centered learning, because they indoctrinate. So if I arrive at the right answer, but I don't use your methodology, and this is how they kept our leaders against each other. So actually, Malcolm and Martin were trying to achieve the same thing. They were just using different methodologies to achieve it, right? You can fall on one side or the other. It doesn't matter. They both were fighting the same beast. And that's where we lose our train of thought. Okay. But the thing is we've got to bring out the natural genius that's in our children. Okay. And so when you start hearing these guys talk like Sir Francis Galton, and particularly Charles Davenport, he strongly believed that you cannot allow the mixing of what they call the elitist class, who were the most talented, the most intellectual. Okay, so, you know, they had to prove. So what happened? They ran into a situation where, okay, so now how are we going to convince the public that this is scientifically factual? Okay, so now we're going to overstep natural selection, and we're going to implement this false ideology about eugenics. So what happens? In the 20th century, the British began to take, one other thing too as well is, what's his name? Oliver Wendell Holmes, okay, the Chief Justice of the United States, also said that it is better for us to eliminate the undesirables. So see, at the highest levels of our society, our government, our judicial system, this was their train of thought, much like it is today, just in a different way. But it's the same message, okay? But imagine Oliver Wendell Holmes. He's somebody that is celebrated as one of our greatest judicial minds. And children are taught about him. But if they knew that he was a eugenicist, which most of the elite class was during that time, but he also was for the rise of eugenics. So again, during the 20th century, the British began to take eugenics as an attractive idea. by erasing negative and undesirable people. Winston Churchill, who's another person that's celebrated in the history of Europeans. Winston Churchill was a leading proponent of eugenics. In fact, he was the prime minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945. And this goes really deep as we look at some of the other important early proponents of eugenics, and it's rooted in the American psyche. So Madison Grant, who was a prominent attorney and who also was connected to the earliest people in our society, I believe it was the Quakers, who set, moral guidelines for people. And one of the things that he believed in, he was also a descendant of some of our earliest, the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Okay. So Madison Grant, but it was the one that pushed forth this idea, this ideology about the Nordic race, the blonde, blue-eyed Nordic race that would cleanse society of all the other non-desirable, feeble-minded traits that contributed to criminality, bad behavior, even looks. A lot of this is where you start getting the beauty standards that were set for our women and men. Okay. And also, the origins of eugenics in America, white Protestant Americans feared being outnumbered, okay, and outbred by immigrants and the offspring of these immigrants. Again, this is the language of eugenics that we see today. A lot of times why they don't want us to examine real history is because we begin to get the explanation of things and see them in their true nature, which they always try to hide behind the slave religion, just by quoting scripts. And this elitist class of Americans that we see today, or the ones they call billionaires, they were afraid that they were being replaced. So they embraced this new pseudoscience that was born in Britain called eugenics, which falsely claimed that they could eliminate socially undesirable behavior, okay, by stopping them from reproducing. Okay. And also they advocated for sterilization. And this is when sterilization became a law in 33 of the 48 states in America. And that's why I was saying to you, they're using this language because, mark my word, they're going to start go back to these laws, okay, to start classifying people so they can lock them up. Because they were locking up a whole bunch of white people with mental health issues back during this time. Okay. But they labeled anyone that was not labeled, that was non-white Protestant, and that was viewed as bad and should not be allowed to reproduce, but only the good white Protestant Christians or neo-Nazis, whatever you want to call them, Christian nationalists that we see today. All right. So, y'all all right, brother?
We're all good. I'm right here.
Let's look at the rise of eugenics in America. Okay. Now, this part of history is very important for us to really, really examine, because this particular energy has always existed in our country, but it's being researched. So now I begin to see what they mean by make America great again. This had baffled a whole lot of people. Okay. It even baffled me because people were asking, well, what time in history were you saying that America was great? A lot of people was confused by this because when Black folks go back and look at decades and centuries, or half a centuries or 60 years, we cannot identify any time that was great for us. So if you're saying that we're not Americans, that's one thing, which we know we're indigenous, okay? So we're not saying, we're not concerned about that. We're just talking about this was throughout all of our society. In fact, the colleges and universities, again, such our Ivy League universities, I know they had a major conference at Vassar, at Brown. They had, and they had a conference in Panama where they had over 10,000 people to attend from all different professional scientific areas. But all of the medical science, all of the colleges and universities taught eugenics, and medical science confirmed it. So this is when they moved into the area where they had to show, because they already knew that they were recessive. In fact, they made up this excuse that one of the reasons why what happened was that this Nordic race was the last of the evolution of humans. And that this Nordic race, because they were just still evolving, this is how they explain their recessive genes, right? They said that the reason they couldn't allow them to mate with any of the undesirables is because the undesirables genes would dominate them simply because they were still evolving. So this is how they justify the fact that if you have one drop of black blood, you're considered black, okay, or brown, what have you, which is really the same thing. But yeah, so, and not only that, clergymen preached it. Like we said, Margaret Sanger, somehow she convinced Black clergymen that it was important. And this is when they start bastardizing our young women, talking about having kids out of wedlock when they were, raping our women at will and having children all over the globe. They never talked about that. But now all of a sudden, with this new false ideology, then now it's a problem. So, yeah, she convinced, and then, like I was saying earlier, W.B. Du Bois came up with this ideology about the talented 10th that was really just a spinoff of eugenics. And that's why you see this in the psychology of the Black community, even to this day, where you have the boule, you have this upper class of Blacks, the so-called educated elites, the ones who are part of the political system, or the Blacks who have, pretty much, become a part of that system. We see this today. And we see how this has affected our people in a mighty way. But yeah, our preachers used to preach this, a form of eugenics. Okay. And as I was saying, our wealthiest people in American society also funded. So Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller financed the first eugenics institution, where at first Dr. Charles Davenport was experimenting on roosters and rats and different stuff. But then he told them, okay, I'm going to start splicing human genes. Okay, he told them this, and they still backed him. We talked about the fact that Margaret Sanger was also involved with this. Helen Keller, she was also involved with eugenics. And one of the most prominent American, well, the one that took all of the credit from Lewis Latimer's inventions, Alexander Graham Bell, you know. So all of these prominent and wealthy Americans were a part of this new false ideology of the Nordic race and the purity of the race, which we see the Nazis, they ate this up. Okay. So as I was saying earlier, they killed the babies that were produced from what they call the idiot babies or the undesirables, and 33 of the 48 states enacted sterilization laws for wards of the state deemed physically or mentally unfit. So they started getting data from prisons, hospitals, mental asylums. Over 60,000 Americans would be sterilized without their consent. There was a big, huge, one of the first cases that highlighted sterilization was a heiress of, I think it was a railroad magnate, but the surgery was actually done in San Francisco. I think it was in 1934, maybe. But unbeknownst to her, her mother had collaborated with other eugenicists, and they believed that she had some kind of trait. Now, I theorized that somehow she had come in contact or dated. What a lot of people don't know is the reason why they called Italians criminals, that when they reproduced their traits were criminals like they do the Mexicans today. But a lot of people don't know that the Etruscans, the Black Italians, when some of them, their descendants, they had like a darker hue. They immediately rejected them. And I had a friend that I used to work with. We actually used to run the shelters in Oakland together. And he went to Italy a couple of years ago. I think I talked to you about this, Lance. And he was shocked. He was like, Neil, boy, you are right, man. He said, there are so many, but see, what people don't know is when you go abroad, and you know this, Lance, that you really see that white people in America is a small, minute part of the world.
Exactly.
That the majority of the people in the world are people of color, if not Black.
That's right.
And boy, he was shocked. He was like, man, these beautiful Italian women, they're dark. And I was like, yeah, those are the original. See, in all cultures, the original people were Black people. We know this already. But again, they did an effective job with hiding this from the world and distorting things. So back to what we were saying. So when they implemented these sterilization wards, then they started going like they do our brothers, like they did with the Tuskegee experiment. And they started going to prisons and hospitals and mental asylums. And, this is what they plan to do. Project 2025. Boy, they really okey-doke. They okey-doke white people on this one real bad. Because at the end of the day, Black folks going to survive. It's going to be tough on us, but we have what it takes to survive. What happened was that, so I was talking about this heiress that had this, so when she found out that they actually sterilized her, took out her appendix, and did other things without her consent. And that was the case that highlighted sterilization. Because somehow her mother believed that she, had some traits that were undesirable to pass down in their own family. What else happened? Okay, so at this time, actually, the last sterilization law didn't come off the books until 2014, as hard as that is to believe. So we move on to this guy who actually was a student that eventually became a biologist, Mueller, he questioned the equality of natural selection. And since these called best, the so-called best was chosen by the elite. So here again, we see this God complex rearing its ugly head. Okay, where this is how they thought, this is how they think right now. We decide who gets to live. We decide who is, you know, the natural selection ain't good enough. So in other words, the creative spirit is making too many mistakes, as hard as that is to believe. So now we're talking about the scientific justification of eugenics. And so now you can see where this racist immigration rhetoric originated from. Okay, but now we begin to see they introduced euthanasia, okay, which is the act of a third party, usually one of these sadistic surgeons, that typically is a physician that intentionally ending a person's life to relieve suffering and is often considered a form of mercy killing. Now, if you remember, there was this guy, I think his name was Dr. Jack Kevorkian in Michigan. I don't know if it was Detroit, but I know it was Michigan. I think he actually got indicted because he believed that, so there were people coming to him saying, look, our relative is going through a lot of anguish, pain, suffering, and we give you consent to end their lives. So then this big debate reared its ugly head again. Who has the right to decide who lives or dies? And it's funny because they indicted Dr. Kevorkian, but this was something that they wholeheartedly believed in. So then we start to see the genocide, the segregation, and the racist laws, and the origin. And this all, again, started from the origin of human species, which Darwin, or Darwinism, and evolutionary science. But the person that ultimately had the most effect on Charles Davenport was Gregor Mendel and his studies of you know, the peas, and somehow he related this to human intelligence. Okay, and natural selection and heredity, nature or nurture, and they separated twins at birth and raised them in separate environments and different socioeconomic classes to prove this. And he advocated for the marriage only amongst upper classes and separation from what they deemed lower classes. That's why you see, even when you see these people talking about having a whites only town, you see this rhetoric, eugenics language about low IQ. And then you see this ban on interracial marriages. All of this come from this. Okay, all of this come from, you know, this false ideology based on a God complex that actually changed the dynamics of the world we live in today. Okay, let's just keep it real. This is something that we see that's raising its ugly head again. And finally, I want to talk about this particular psychologist. His reach, his philosophy, and his ideology still affects the psychological and spiritual existence of Black people today. Not just Black people, but all people in America, but particularly Black people. And we're going to talk about this and why. But also, we're keeping in mind that this is the scientific justification of eugenics, because the white elitist class, they never they always look for ways to explain from a scientific perspective, since they were not naturally connected to nature and science because of a 90-degree way of interpreting the world. Then they had to do studies to convince other prominent white people why they should support this false ideology or this neo-Nazi or Nazism. So this particular psychologist, who is the father of standardized testing, who was a eugenicist, who worked with Dr. Davenport. His name was Goddard, and yes, he's connected to those Goddards. Okay. He advocated for the separation of low IQ people and separate them from society. Okay, and this is where the Alfred Binet tests originated. And he stated, okay, so they believed, again, this is why you can see them tear down homeless camps with no thought about it. These are the undesirables in our society. Theodore Roosevelt, one of our former presidents, said, why should we support poverty? Why should we put in, and you see that today, that's why they're eliminating all of the financial support base or systems in society, because this is where they're going back to. Okay, we're not going to, or I heard one of them say, well, we should just kill them all. See, all of this comes from this. And we have to be very careful right now, because again, we have a lot of our people still trusting, okay, this is a huge mistake that we have made. And I'm going to make a statement before I go on of something I heard someone say one time. The state of our spiritual and religious worship today amongst Black people, okay, is like someone crossing a river in a boat. And then when they get on land, they're dragging that boat on their back. And that's because we have failed to eliminate ourselves from the caterpillar process and have a proper cocoon experience. Okay. But we are still attached to that. Okay. And so if you were to detach yourself from that, then I don't argue with adults about this no more. Let's just give the children a chance, man. Okay? Just do that. Let them decide how they, because it's already inside of them. This is what you don't realize, but you've been indoctrinated that you have to impose this dogmatism on them, like all of us was. And in fairness to our people and our ancestors, no, they really didn't have a choice at that time. Now we do. So let's get into this this last part. This guy is very influential in the American Medical or Psychiatric or Psychological Association. And so he believed in selective breeding and the study of agencies under social control that may impair or improve the racial qualities both physically and mentally of our society. Okay, so this guy, so when we look at Charles Davenport, again, who was a 19th century biologist and who embraced eugenics from the British elite, he started an institute in Oyster Bay, New York, to study and record the human condition It was called The Book and the Hierarchy Hierarchy and Eugenics. So again, this was the first time that they began to classify, which eventually became clinical diagnostic tools. So I remember my first job out of Morgan. I told this story several times before, but I'll just use it to make a point here. Was at Spring Grove State Mental Hospital in Baltimore. And the one of my first patients that I used to have to take notes every hour on was a beautiful young Italian woman that lost her mind on the day that she was supposed to graduate with a PhD. And years later, when I went back and thought about her PhD was on eugenics, okay, and how it affected people of color. And somebody slipped a Mickey or something in a drink of hers when she was celebrating. And they brought her to Spring Grove. And when I met her, she used to do her head like this. She was like, Frazier. She said, you know about eugenics? I was like, well, not really. At the time, I didn't, Here I am, 21 years old, because our people weren't taught about this. And she was a librarian. And she said, you need to study eugenics. She used to say that to me every time I saw her. You need to study eugenics. You need to find out what the real American ideology is. And she just walk around that room all day, just quoting stuff. And they put her on Paxil, Thorazine, and lithium. And these are powerful psychotropics. And they was making sure that she never was able to tell this story to anybody. I guess they buried her dissertation. But one day I went back after about 3 months and she was gone. They said they transferred her. I was like, wow, okay. So they silenced white people who began to look at this and say, this is wrong. They silenced them, much like they do today when they're trying to hide things that we know that actually happened, right? So winding down here. So as I said, Charles Davenport, he was so passionate about this that now he had some type of God ability to alter the evolutionary process. He went to this, again, one of our wealthy heirs in New York, I forget her name. And he said to her, he said, look, I have a way right now that you're throwing away all your money to support these programs of poverty and people who will never, be of any help to society. That's pretty much useless. Like the term they use with us today is useless eaters. Bill Gates and those use this term. So he said, why don't you help me build my institution, and then the money can go towards bettering the race. So we'll just, put together the elite of our society, the best of our society, or in other words, the white nationalists, and then we'll produce a race of Nordic people that, we live happily ever after, so to speak. And so she financed it. And then he began this work of affecting the natural selection and using eugenics to determine who was going to be born and who was going to die. A couple of references from the academic world too. Former Stanford president David Starr Jordan embraced this theory that intelligence was inherited through race and blood. And in 1902, the book Blood of a Nation He proposed that human conditions, such as poverty and intelligence, was passed down through the blood. You also had Dr. Kellogg, the Kellogg Corporation, who was he was the one that produced cornflakes. But he used cornflakes to tell the elite that they needed to have their bowels cleaned out through cornflakes. So all of them went to this conference, not only to learn about this new nutritional value, but to also study eugenics. The Kellogg Corporation financed Davenport, okay, and his name was John Harvey Kellogg. And again, Carnegie financed the study of American breeding or selective breeding. Eugenics, Henry Goddard, who is the guy, the clinical psychologist I was speaking of, that he convinced Davenport to help give some structure to this process. And so he started clinically diagnosing people. Like I said, he would send letters to prisons, mental health wards, wherever he could get data on people about their heritage. He was one of the first proponents of special education, because this is when they start classifying people. They came up, we know, with the DSM. Well, I was referred to the DSM-3, it's the DSM-5 now. But he began to break down people on all different categories: tall, short, black hair, blue eyes, whatever. And then you had this one guy, I think his name was Morgan, from Columbia University. They had a lab there that they would study the fruit fly in order to determine hereditary traits. But what they found out, that the fruit fly reproduced at a faster rate. So now you have these generations coming much quicker. And so he was still getting what they call the Mendelian ratio, which is really natural selection. Okay, but those guys were known in Columbia, at Columbia University, as the fruit fly guys or whatever. And it was a very prominent study. So as we look back at the history of this field of eugenics, we see that this is a energy that's now being recaptured by a group of people who want to reclaim this superiority complex that actually goes against the hypocrisy that they have taught our people about a God that loves them and that all people are created equal. And that's why they assassinated Abraham Lincoln as well. Okay, so why they killed John F. Kennedy, who was the first man to go, or president to go on TV and advocate for Black equality. So all of this is tied into our history. While they want to continue to lie about our history and ban certain books, but the truth is coming out. I'm very encouraged. A lot of our young people now are embracing our history and standing 10 toes down. And I think I'll end with that, Brother Lance.
Yes, this is the worst part of the week when you end it. When you say those words, I feel a shot of adrenaline shoot through my chest. Just when I was in Friday in elementary school and the 3 o'clock bell rung, it's like, oh man. And that time I was happy, but right now I'm sad.
It's something good. Yeah, man, and it's good for us to go back again. They teach our people, oh, that was in the past. Oh, those old people don't know what they're talking about. Really? That is the downfall. Right. I think we did a video where we talked about how our young people have bamboozled to think they know everything, so therefore they don't have to study our history. And that has crippled us more than anything. that our young people, when I was telling you about Maya Angelou, and I was privileged to see her twice in my lifetime.
Wonderful.
And I go back and I listen. So when you listen to the wisdom of our sisters back during that time, it kind of replenishes you, and it kind of reminds you of the real wisdom that we're supposed to be passing down. But if we're fighting with each other about which one of these vampires narratives are right, we ain't never going to be able to do nothing. And that's why I've turned all my attention to young people, man, to the children.
And just like when you were mentioning about Maya Angelou, when you heard her, I'll assume when you're a little younger, the older we get, the wiser we, those of us who get wiser, when we hear the same words that we heard before, it can also be more powerful because our reach and our awareness is deeper, so we can extract more.
Sure.
You see what I mean? It's like when you watch an old movie that was something really good. I'm not just talking about foolish entertainment, but something really deep. And then when you have more life experiences and you look at it, you go, wow, I didn't think about that.
Yes.
I didn't think about, and sometimes people that you misunderstood in those movies or in any situation in life, sometimes you could say to yourself, I still don't agree with how they responded or how they lived, but I can understand it now. I can understand why.
That's one of the main reasons why now I like to go back and look at different aspects of my life in history, because like what you're saying is true. The Earth, Wind, and Fire song, Fantasy, really, really does bring home that point. And some things won't manifest until all of the pieces of that puzzle in your life that is a part of your main purpose is connected. And see, you were a big part of that in my life, brother. I didn't know that. There are a few other people that once you connect with them, then it becomes clear. And you see the path clear. And then you say, wow. And like you're saying, you go back and you listen to it again. And I like to go back and look at old movies too. And I said, wow. Okay, it wasn't for me to know that during that time. But now is the time for me to know this. Yeah.
Wow.
So
thank you. You light my path also, brother. We all have a light inside of us that may cover in a stronger level. It's always full range, but a certain range or part of the spectrum is even stronger. So if we walk down the road together, the part where I may not be strong, yours is stronger in that area and can light it better for me, and I'll see it more so than when I'm walking down by myself.
Yes. Now, a lot of times, Lance, the things you say, they're structural in their concept. And so it's good because we're able to draw something from it. And so you're absolutely right that the things that we are supposed to get, then when we look at where we're supposed to get this from, then that's when we're able to get the proper downloads. Unfortunately, and this is one of the main reasons why they keep us separated on Kibalon, the Caribbean, here on Turtle Island, wherever our people are, because it don't take that many to connect to affect these systems.
Yeah.
So they know that, like you were saying, we're superhuman to them, whereas to us, this is our natural abilities. So, but one of the reasons why they effectively keep us separated on all kind of little foolish stuff by uploading emotional things that keep us at our throats, okay, or to glory in the failure of one of our brothers or sisters. I don't take no glory in that. In a funny kind of way, not a funny kind of way, I really wanted Dr. Umar to succeed. I really did. I really did, because I knew the impact. Again, I don't care what they say about Black women. When they see a brother that they perceive is for our people, And because of that creative spirit that's naturally in them, they're going to support you. But what happens is they have trained us through these personalities in the Black community, the pastor, the pimp, the hustler, the prostitute. These negative traits they have placed in our community. For one, there were the only few, just like in slavery, there were only certain ways that you could earn an income.
Right.
So they took these personalities and they made them seem as if there was something to it. Not seem like, that's what we aspired to be. The ones that drove around the big shiny Cadillacs, that had the big hats on, you know, flexing, the long coats, right? You know, this is what we were taught to put value in. And if we don't change the course of this with our people that are under 10 years old, boy. The other thing too is, I'll close on this, Brother Lance, is that they always want to talk about black on black crime, but we need to seriously address what's happening to young white males between the ages of 16 and 30, because they are the biggest threat to the American public.
Yeah.
I don't know why they continue to, I know why they continue to focus on black and brown folks, but they have to have this ideology, this eugenics ideology that they're superior. But, and by labeling us like they've always done with these negative traits. But the truth is, now this last guy drove his truck through the front of the church, shot all these people, and then set the church on fire. Could you imagine if that was a black, I don't care if he was a veteran or not, if that was a black dude,
right?
Man, we would not hear the end of this. Would be on every device, on every major media outlet, fake news. It would be everywhere. A black savage just drove his truck into the church. But now, and you know, I get it. These people, these young brothers and sisters that's coming back from the military, just like my brother drunk himself to death, the VA ain't doing a damn thing to help them. Mm-hmm. And we know they're suffering from post-traumatic trauma, okay?
Yeah.
We know this. They just released them back in society with no help. They can't go nowhere. They done cut the budget, but for the veterans. But I'm gonna tell you, bro, there's winter coming to America, man. You cannot do this kind of evil. You cannot put this kind of blood in the soil and the creatrix walk away from it. So peace and love to you, Brother Lance, and the family.
Thank you, brother.
Up to the belts.
Thank you.
Got my belts.
Yes.
Gotta
hold on to the belt. Pow.
Okay. Because you know. Oh, one other thing. Did you see what they did to Bud Crawford in his hometown in Omaha?
I was so stunned. I was gonna talk about it. I was so stunned. It kicked me off. And maybe in retrospect, I'll still, I want to catch that one this guy does something so monumental in boxing, to be undisputed champion in 3 different divisions and a champion in 5, right? But undisputed in the 4-belt era, to go up 2 weight divisions, 3 weight divisions to beat Canelo Alvarez in front of the world when most people didn't give him a chance. The experts did, and the people in the know knows his style. He has a parade. Here's the catch, right? I'm going to talk about it. But he has the parade. He's a family man. He's taking care of his children. He's not married to the children's mother, but he's with her and gives her everything, right? They're together. He knows his father. He knows his mother. His mother was a big force in developing him with the mindset that he has. So he's loved by Omaha. He has a parade when he came back. He leaves the function, whatever time, he's talking to different people, and the cops pull him over saying he's driving reckless. saying they didn't know who he was. They pull him over, put him at gunpoint, and make him get out the car and handcuff him. Now, they said there's a gun in the vehicle, but it was security. And it was put away in the box, I believe, right? So you just couldn't reach and grab the gun. Why did you grab him? And they say that they didn't know him. That's some Klan ritual, man. That's the thing to say, oh, you just a nooker, you're not bigger than that. And they don't respect that he's not acting out with the gold and acting stupid and getting caught and arrested. No, he's a clean living role model, a family man. You see what I mean? And they don't like that.
No, they
and
don't.
Respectable. All the races in Omaha, they groove with him. They respect him.
Oh yeah.
He spoke, yeah. And he had it hard in boxing too, because they tried to keep him with the politics of boxing from him really emerging.
Yes.
We should have been talking about him from many years ago.
Bro.
Those in the know, but it didn't come as a surprise when he beat Errol Spence so easy.
No,
it didn't come as a surprise that he moved up all that weight and beat Canelo Alvarez.
He beat every single boxer in every weight class he was in. You go back and look at all his 42 fights. He beat some of that guy Lundy from Harlem, who he was a very good boxer, but he was running this. And
even his own promoter, Bob Arum, kept him pushed down. He kept him away because Bob Arum was pushing Manny Pacquiao.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And he knew if he let Bud Crawford fight Pacquiao, that's it. So at that time, he was the cash cow, Manny Pacquiao. This guy had so many roadblocks politically, with other fighters who wanted to ignore him, everything against him. At the end of the day, he succeeded. And he cried. I wanted to cry. I watched the fight.
Me too. And it's just...
to have this happen?
Huh? To have that happen?
And to have this happen, you coming from your parade, the whole city turns out, the mayor's there, all of this stuff. Now we know how things go with him, but he couldn't be denied. And this very time, you're going to put him at gunpoint? Put him in cuffs? The gun is licensed. He's a celebrity. He's a superstar. If he did a crime, fine. He didn't do nothing.
Nothing. Wow. It's incredible, brother. I'm not surprised. But so I'll be in touch with you tomorrow night, Brother Lance, about Wednesday.
Yes. And, I'm looking forward to that. And I have all the ducks in a row, everything lined up.
Okay.
And we'll move forward. Okay.
Yes,
and I'll call you before then anyway, still too. All right.
Well, thank you for all that you do, brother. Keep up
the great work.
And peace to the fam. And you guys continue your great work.
Thank you so much,
brother Lance.
Thank you.
All right.
Much love to you, brother. All right.
Love.
We're going to wrap this down. And I'm going to probably record something to do something. I got to talk about that. Because there's so many angles that I can come with that. And that really got me so upset. I couldn't believe it. But I want to end it on a positive note, that I love these conversations. They don't last long enough, but we'll be back Wednesday to promote the book, the audio, that brilliant work that Neil Frazier's doing. And I'm just so glad that we connected. Years have gone by, but we've been connected for years, and never a bad word, never a bad feeling, always positive, always good. When you roll like that, you got to continue. When you find something good, no matter who it is, with the energy of the people around you, you have to hold on tight. Understand that there will be outside forces that will try to stop you, but you keep rolling forward with the positive momentum, and everything will be all right. And that's what I go by. Like I tell people, this is not about hits and likes and all of that stuff or popularity. It's something we have to do, and it comes from the soul. And that's what it's all about. But anyway, I'll be back soon with some more, and we're going to burn the content this week and keep it up. And thank you for being here. I love you all very much. Thank you so much. Peace.